Hi everyone, it's Sharon here, and I felt really compelled to start a conversation about my special skills and also what your special skills are. And what I mean by that is that I have certain abilities that some I've known about since I was young or realised I've had since I was young, and others which I have developed as I've gotten older. And they're pretty useful skills, I would say. But mainstream society probably either doesn't believe that they're possible, and or even if they do believe it's possible, they can't really see or imagine how they can be utilised. And so I would say that apart from with my clients, I have pretty much hidden my special skills from the world. I have approached certain organisations who I think are doing good in the world and said, hey, I've got some special skills. I could really help you. And I either get no response or I get a yeah, but thanks, but no thanks, which I found a little bit disheartening in the past. But I kind of get it. Like, the skills are a bit unusual. I was going to say weird. They're not weird, they're unusual. But I believe that I have these special skills for a very good reason. And I believe you've probably got some very special skills. Some are maybe latent, some may be just emerging, whereas others you have been working with for a while. And I'm really interested to know what your special skills are. And I'd be super interested to know if you share the same skills as I do. I really feel that as we're moving into this new era and we're moving into the Great Awakening, I know for a fact there's thousands of us who are all part of this great, if not millions of us who are part of this Great Awakening. And we must have all got some special skills, right? But if we don't talk about them, right, if we don't share them, we're never really going to be able to see how we can utilize them. Now, I can kind of see how my skills could be utilized, but I'd be really interested to hear what other people think I could use my skills for. And if you've got skills that you don't talk about very much, how could we together help that sort of bring in the new era, build, better systems, have greater ideas for greater peace and love and tranquility in this world, and solve some of the big world solutions? How are we going to do that if we don't know what our skills allow us to? So that's the reason, that's the motivation for the video today. So I'm going to share what I believe are some of my special skills. I've got others in lesser forms, but I'll talk about the main ones. And I don't normally share this. I certainly don't share it publicly, but my clients know what my skills are because I utilize them for the benefit of them. I have their permission. I always ask permission before I utilize them. But I don't normally talk about them because most people don't probably believe that it's possible, even though I very, very do know it's possible. But I'm doing this because I really feel deep in my soul that now is the time that we start to come together and just really appreciate the kind of skills that the mainstream world, societal, concrete mind doesn't really believe is possible, but we know it is because we have those skills. So I'm going to share, and I truly, truly hope that in response to this video, you will share too, because I truly am curious as to what else is possible in our community of spiritual folk and light workers. So the first skill I will say that I have, or the ability that I have, has been with me since birth. I didn't realise it when I was younger. But as I've gotten older and looked back on my life, I can clearly see it has always been there. And I kind of describe it as I am a lie detector in human form. Or you could say I'm a truth detector in human form. My friends tend to call it my bullshit radar. Because I've got a very, very strong bullshit radar is another way of saying it. But even as a child, when as a child, you're discovering about the world, and I would ask an adult a question and they'd give me an answer, and I would be like, nope, that's not it. I just knew intuitively, nope, that's not it. Nope, that's not it. And I would ask some deeper, meaningful questions about the meaning of life, and I would get no satisfactory answer. And that's why I ended up being a bit of an atheist for quite some time, because my younger mind kind of concluded that if I keep asking the questions, and I asked in lots of different places, in lots of different religions, and said, hey, tell me what the answer to this question is. No one really gave me satisfactory answers. Well, if there isn't one, if there aren't satisfactory answers, it must mean that it's all made up. And so I went through a period of being an atheist. I no longer am. I've now understood things on a much deeper level. And I'm most definitely not an atheist in any shape or form. Quite the opposite, in fact. But that's how I know I've had it for a very long time, because, and this is most annoying to my parents, I'm someone who asks a lot of questions, but I'm not satisfied with anything other than pure truth. I am not satisfied with fake answers or half answers. And so growing up, this was prevalent with me. It was always there. But I didn't really know it was there. I just knew I was unsatisfied with people's answers quite a lot, which after the internet has really made my life so much better, because now I can just Google half the things I want to know the answers to. But this truth detector, lie detector, it means that when people speak, usually people speak, but I can in written form as well, and observation, I can kind of see where the truth is and where the truth isn't. And someone speaking, I can it's almost like a bell goes off for truth and for lies. Different kinds of sounds appear. How I feel in the body differs. If something is truthful and it's true, I go, oh, yes, I'll take that. I can tell that is true. And I take it for myself, and I integrate it because I know it to be true. And if it's not true, I just out and out reject it, because there's no point in holding on to something that's not true. So this is been very helpful in my life to a certain degree. If people said some things that were quite unkind or mean to me, even from quite a young age, I could hear that it wasn't true. It was just someone being mean, and that person's meanness hurt me on an emotional level, but I didn't internalize it because I knew it wasn't true. And so in that regard, it's been quite helpful personally in my life. But also it's a bit difficult, because I can tell when people, so I can tell on just by listening or by reading if something's true or not true. I can tell in their physicality as well. So sometimes people will take an almost inaudible breath, hold their breath, or sometimes there's the absolute minute flicker in an eye, and I can see it, and I'm like, mm-hmm. And often that's because somebody is hiding something from me. If someone's hiding something, you can see it in their physicality as well, often. And it's imperceptible to most people, but I can see it, I can feel it. And I can hear it when people are hiding something in their speech. So they believe they're telling you the truth, but I can tell that they don't really believe it, and it's not true. And they've said something to cover up what they really believe is true as well. So there's this other third part, which is truth, untruth, and then there's like this hiding that I can pick up on as well. So this is why I'm not allowed, and this is my own choice to not watch politicians speak. I just get irate because the lack of truth just drives me insane, and the manipulation drives me insane. It's quite painful to see other people absorbing untruth and even engaging with untruths. It feels like a pointless activity to me to engage with something that is a lie. Why bother? So obviously politicians and TV, not great for me. But generally, it's a very positive skill to be able to tell truth from untruth. It also means that I've got a fairly good sense of ethics, because I can tell when something is true or something is not true, and I don't follow something if it's not true. So that's kind of my first skill, my truth detecting, which, you know, I think has many positive applications potentially, but I've never really I use it in healing, and I use it with clients, obviously. If I'm a coach, you know, when I do coaching sessions, it's quite good to know if someone's hiding something from themselves or from me, if there's a truth or not truth. And then the related skill number 2 is that I can tap into, listen into the consciousness of other people's minds, and that includes humans, anything that has consciousness. So that includes animals, and it includes plants. I have to say some conversations are not worth having because they're a bit basic, but others are definitely worth having because they are quite interesting and insightful, and there's a lot of wisdom in different areas of consciousness. But I can tap in to other people's consciousness, and I can ask questions. And I was actually told quite a long time ago to actually practice this skill. I don't do it a lot, even though I was told to practice it, because I tend to practice these things when I want to know an answer to a question. And usually I want to know an answer to the question if there are politicians creating suffering in this world, and I want to know their motivation. So I've tapped into, and it can be anywhere in the world. Consciousness doesn't have a location in that regard. So I can tap into anybody anywhere in the world if I know who I want to connect with. People, I've used this to find pets that have gone missing and stuff as well. But I'm trying to describe a place from a cat's perspective. It's kind of annoying, but it's still possible to find them that way. And also talking to trees and other consciousness and grass, you can learn a lot from as well. You have to, so it doesn't, there's no language barrier with consciousness. You kind of hear things and you can speak to things, speak in a way that you understand it rather than how they're communicating. It doesn't really matter what their communication is, you hear it in how you can hear it, receive it. But I've used this to connect in with politicians, particularly to check their motivation, because that's what the universe asked me to practice with. Now, I have enough integrity, and I would never interfere with free will. So all I do is I tap in, and I've been told to practice it. I can tap in to famous people to check motivation. I'm not allowed to go in and change, for obvious reasons. It interferes with free will. I'm not allowed to think, oh, I dislike that person, let me go in and change their mind on something, because I can have a full-on conversation with them. And when I work with clients and they benefit from me doing this, I ask their permission and say, can I have a word with your subconscious mind? They say yes, and I can talk to their subconscious mind and convince it that what we're doing is a benefit to them, and that they should let go of their negative behaviors or whatever. So it's actually easier to go direct into consciousness, whether that be your subconscious mind, your soul, your spirit. I can have a chat without the filter that comes out, because when you talk to somebody, there's usually a filter. We all have these little filters of how we would phrase something, and yet when I'm with a client and I tap in and I ask a question directly, I'll get a different answer, and I'll say, this is what your consciousness is saying, and they say, oh yeah, no, that's it, that's exactly what it is. So it just takes away this filter, this unnecessary filter. So with clients, it's really useful. But I feel like there's other benefits of this. I feel like there probably are things that well, maybe if others have this skill too, that we could utilize this ability to sort of work on ideas on a energetic level. I don't really know, that we could really tap into each other's conscious levels that we allow and really come up with some great ideas. You know, at the moment, you've got to put things in writing, you've got to distribute it, and it takes quite a long time. And I just wonder if there's another way of doing things. So if you've got this skill, I'd be really interested to hear about it too. So I only use it for all my skills are for the purposes of good only. Because I have this truth ability, as you could imagine, I also have a very strong sense of integrity, and I would never interfere with free will. I would never dream of doing that in a million years. But there is, I think there are ways in which we can learn without, from people because people filter everything through their minds. Okay, so that's my skill number 2. Skill number 3 is, and I could talk about this in a number of different ways, but probably the way I would say is that I am aware that I am a channel. I can channel information. I can speak very clearly and receive answers and have a whole conversation with spirit people and entities, if you like, in spirit. And because I ask a lot of questions, I get a lot of answers. So depending on what I'm asking, there is a level of clairvoyance in there as well. Sometimes I can see things coming along the track. Sometimes because I'm asking a lot of questions, I get information and I'll say, oh, when's that? And because time isn't linear in spirit, I don't get like an exact timing. And sometimes I do get an exact timing. But it's the communication with spirit has been getting a lot clearer in the last few years. So initially, I only ever used to speak to my guide called Elizabeth. Many of you will recognise her name because she's been very helpful through the years. And then I got introduced to who I call the 3 Ps. And I call them the 3 Ps because I can't have a mental block against the word. The Palladians, I can never say it. That's why I call them the 3 Ps. They're not all from the Palladian area, but they're close enough to be called the 3 Ps. And I also can speak to the realm of the gurus. I didn't know such a place existed, but since I was asking lots of questions, the gurus come forward who have passed over and no longer on the earthly plane. They come through and they answer my questions as well. So I have this communication ability to speak with, and sometimes I ask to speak to somebody specifically. And these are just the people I feel most comfortable with. These are the entities that I feel and areas that I feel most comfortable with. There will be many, I'm sure, and then you can see it on YouTube as well. People have communications with archangels, Archangel Michael, archangels for healing, different galaxies and different places and different councils and galactic councils. So there's others who channel. These are just my particular comfort zone of who I speak with. And they always answer my questions quite very clearly. And so for me, rather than I don't really like to, but it does come down sometimes this way. Sometimes, people call it a download. You can get lots of information in one go. And I get a lot of healing techniques this way. I'll ask a question, or I'll subconsciously even be asking a question for a while. And then one day I'll just get like a meditation or a healing technique. And I'll write it all down, and then I'll practice it, try it, and just tweak it and make sure it's I've got it right. When it came through as a download. So I receive stuff that way. But most of the time, I'm just asking questions. I'm having a conversation. And it is just like having a conversation with somebody who's in the room. It's as clear as somebody's in the room. And so that's how I tend to chat with the universe. And I have spoken directly as well to the universe. Every once in a while I get a direct answer from, if you want to call it, all that is. And I can tell the difference. It's a very, very, very different, and it's very hard to get an answer directly, but you can get it. So those are my main kind of 3 abilities that I don't talk about very much, but there is a lot of things that I put online and I make available that come from these abilities. And I think it's, I have some lesser abilities. I can take very big abstract ideas or spiritual principles, and I can simplify them down quite easily. And I think there's also a part in there is because I have done a lot of healing work. I've learned a number of techniques through the years, but really I often say, if you cut me, I bleed healing techniques. And that's just because I can pick them up really quickly now. If I hear about a technique, I don't even need to know much about it, or I read a technique, I can pick it up, try it, practice it, see, does it need tweaking as far as I'm concerned, or is it perfect as it is, utilize it and be fine with it. I don't really need to go on a weekend course or do whatever. I can pick these techniques up relatively easily, just because I don't have a problem with trust and faith in what's possible, what's not possible. I have a great ability to, I'm a natural optimist. I believe in that much more is possible than we allow ourselves to believe. So if there's a new technique, or if there's something that comes along and it says this is what it does, my truth filter can check, is it true? Can it do what it says it does? Yes, it can. Okay, let's try it. Okay, but maybe I want to adjust it a little bit according to my understanding of, or I'm quite a stickler for absolute truth. So I sometimes adjust it a little bit because I don't think it's quite accurate enough, but I would make some tweaks to other people's techniques. But it's these are my abilities. I'm so fascinated by what other people have, what other techniques and abilities people have, that I used to teach quantum touch, and we used to talk about in the teaching program. So we would say, can you pick up on things using your different, clairvoyance, clairsentient? Can you feel it? Can you see it? Can you hear it? Are you clairaudient? And there was one, which is you can pick up things through smell. And I used to say, I've never met anybody who's picked it up through smell. And then I met somebody and it was fascinating. And I was like, finally, I've met someone with this ability. And I just really, really interested. And I think we're at this point in humanity now where we've kind of been hiding them away, scared a bit of mockery, scared a bit of people not believing us, and what's possible. But I think now's the time. We should start to come together and share and work with these abilities. So I hope you will add in the comments, or drop me a line, let me know, get in contact, join the Facebook group, Sharon Lawson Invincibility. And yeah, I just really love to hear and just really be inspired by what is possible.